out there.
Oh, she stepped away. Back
I'll
be there in a minute. I give my little opening spiel anyway. So, hello everyone. Good evening. It's Friday night at 8 o'clock. So if you're having a drink while you're doing this debate, that's totally fine. So cheers. But again, this is Schneps Media and PoliticsNY. We are the only media platform providing an outlet for every single candidate to have their voices heard and faces seen. A lot of media outlets, just like you saw last night, right? Not every mayoral contender was included. They do it based on fundraising or whatever they want to base it on. We are providing a platform to every candidate who's on the ballot. So thanks for being here, District 33. You are running to represent the Brooklyn waterfront. It's a seat currently held by Stephen Levin. So it's nice to see everyone here. Many of you know me from my 3 questions in 3 minutes interview series, where it's fun and candid. And if you haven't been on that, I announced officially that the series concluded today because it's very overwhelming doing so many interviews and so many debates, but I'm gonna have to open like 2 secret days in the future where you can book your time to be on the 3 questions in 3 minute series. So stay tuned for that. So today's debate, there's a lot of you on the screen, but I want to make it kind of conversational if we can, or a little bit of a discussion, because at the end of the day, everyone here is a Democrat, and it's confusing for voters to know how you stand out from your other competitors on the screen. Because your policies, we can go into policy things, but I like to make it a little bit more about personality, if that's cool with you guys, because that's the element that the voters are missing. They're not getting the chance to meet you in person and chit chat at the supermarket or whatever it is. You know, we're missing that this year. So this is a platform where you can really be yourself, and I'll ask fun questions like, what's your superpower? Or tell us something fun about yourself, or, you know, what's something that differentiates you from the other people on the screen? And I get the sense of camaraderie here, right? Like everyone's involved and you all know each other and you're friendly. So maybe if you want to ask each other a question, if that's, you know, okay with you guys, we can do that. So basically it's fun and fast and cool. And I know that some people have reached out asking the format. There is no format because every time I do this, I sort of make it up depending on how it flows here because I'm a people person. But anyway, let's go to you guys. I already put your names in alphabetical order, starting by last name on the screen. Let's just do introductions and tell us about yourself and why should people vote for you? And let's start with Elizabeth.
Hi, thanks so much for hosting this tonight. Thanks to Schneps Media. Thanks to Sky. I'm Elizabeth Adams, and I am running because we have an affordability crisis in our district, and we need leaders with clear vision and experience for a just recovery. I'm a lifelong tenant. I grew up in New York City public schools, and I've worked in bars and restaurants for years. And I know firsthand the issues that need to be fixed right now. Now is not the time to continue the status quo in the next city council. And this is especially true in the 33rd district, where broken political promises have left us waiting for parks for years and for funding for our public housing. I've been a fighter for this district. I've been organizing locally with Planned Parenthood and serving as the legislative director for this council district for the last 3 years. I fought against the North Brooklyn pipeline and helped schools set up outdoor learning during the pandemic. I know the needs of our communities, and I'm ready to get to work with you and for you on day one. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you. Victoria, Cambranes.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Schneps Media and Sky and all of the other candidates for coming together for this, this amazing opportunity to debate. My name is Victoria Cambranes. I am born and raised in Greenpoint. My parents are both immigrants from Guatemala and Poland. So I know how hard it is for the working class and for immigrants and people of color in District 33 who are always overlooked and overshadowed by more privileged voices in the community. And so that is who I am fighting for. That is who I have been fighting for. I speak the languages of my community, and I speak to them in a language on a different level than just the political level. They understand me and come to me for a lot of immigration issues, for housing issues. I'm a housing organizer and activist first and foremost. So those are things that a lot of people in our community simply don't feel comfortable coming to their legislators for, and that's what I'm there for. And so I want to bring that energy and bring that local understanding of what the community needs to the city council, which is the most local level of our government.
Thank you. And Sabrina Gates.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be here with all of you today. My name is Sabrina Gates, and I too am a candidate for District 33. I've been a neighborhood resident for more than 15 years. I love this neighborhood, I love this district, and I love this city. And you know, this past year has been a very difficult one for so many, and many people have become aware of many of the disparities that have existed throughout the city. But what I can say is that I look at what this city could be. And we live in one of the richest and most innovative cities in this country, if not this world. And it should be a place that stands out as a marker of just what is possible for us to do when we build and plan stronger. And so I want to be city council member because I want to represent the voices of children who can't speak for themselves, of people of color who have been disenfranchised throughout this process, of all of my neighbors who want to see the city rebuild, who want to see our businesses reopen, who want our space that we call home to be revitalized in a way that works for everyone, so that we can rise and thrive together. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Toba.
Do I have to go now? I'm just enjoying listening. Okay, hi, my name is Toba. Thank you, Sky. Thank you, Schneps, for inviting us tonight on a Friday night at 8 o'clock. My wife is out to dinner right now. I promised her I would try to do a good job. You will not get a stump speech from me. Basically, I am not a politician. I've never been a politician, but I have worked with politicians and worked with city agencies for over 16 years to fix all the deficiencies that have happened around my community. I live in downtown Brooklyn, and I've lived here for over 36 years. And I remember when Brooklyn Heights was a high crime neighborhood, and I am fearful that we're heading in that direction. And if you think about it, all the speeches that all of our politicians make, from our governor to our mayor and to all city council members, and even those running for the state legislature, what do they say? I support affordable housing. Where's all of our affordable housing? We have a program where the mayor currently says we're building 200,000, 300,000. If you look at the stats, over 150,000 of those are just refinanced of existing properties. That's not an affordable housing program. So I got into this race when I figured out that there is a disconnect between real people and those who have governed for far too long, and people who have become career politicians. You know, it was in September of 2018, the city came to us and said, hey, we're going to tear down the promenade. We're going to rip it out at night over a 2-year period. And I formulated with an organization along with the Downtown Brooklyn Partnership and a group called A Better Way to stop the DOT from destroying this neighborhood. Our politicians came along afterwards. The mayor of New York came along afterwards, after he had already supported it, then he didn't support it. We have a problem with non-representative government. And so when I talk to people in the community, in the neighborhood, I say to them very clearly, I've had success. I've rewritten some of the rules in affordable housing because they didn't include union workers. They didn't include teachers and nurses. And I rewrote the income eligibility laws. And I proposed it and it became law in 2013. I've raised over $12 million for our local parks because there are deficiencies in our representative government, and it has to stop. And we have to stop electing people who have spent their lives working in government. And so I'll leave it at that. Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to the conversation tonight.
Thank you. Next up is Lincoln Restler.
Thank you so much, Sky. It is great to be with you all this evening. I am Brooklyn born, raised, and always. This community raised me. I grew up in Brooklyn Heights, and I've rented, I think, 4 different apartments now in Greenpoint over the last 10 plus years. I have never been afraid to take on tough fights or powerful interests. I helped found New Kings Democrats, a reform club in Brooklyn a decade ago, and I led the fight against Vito Lopez, winning a district leader race against the Brooklyn Democratic machine when no one thought that could be done. I am running for city council to be your neighborhood problem solver, the first person you call, text, or email when there is an issue, big or small. We've put out bold plans to make ours the first carbon neutral district, to tackle the affordability crisis and generate the affordable housing, the truly affordable housing that we so urgently need, to activate our empty storefronts with good small businesses, to transform our crumbling infrastructure from the BQE to NYCHD. We are building an awesome coalition on this campaign. I'm so proud to be endorsed by the Work and Families Party and my mentor, Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez and Jumaane Williams and Zephyr Teachout and Julia Salazar and Jabari Brisport and dozens of other progressive organizations and unions and leaders in our community. But our community is hurting right now. And we need our next council member to be someone who is going to fight like hell and truly deliver for our community. Thanks for the chance to be with you all tonight. Look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. And next up is Stu Sherman.
Great, thank you so much. Thanks for hosting this. It's really a wonderful opportunity for all of us to finally speak and get the chance to share our ideas. My name is Stu Sherman. I live in Greenpoint. My wife and 7-month-old daughter are currently out on a walk. Hopefully she'll come back asleep, my daughter that is, and otherwise you may get a chance to meet her while she's screaming. So I'm a type 1 diabetic. I was diagnosed when I was 6 years old. And as a result of our broken healthcare system, I know what it's like to fight for medication and care that you need. This led me to a lifetime career in public health advocacy and healthcare advocacy. I worked for over a decade in health policy on a state level, passing some of the most progressive legislation in the nation, including the model for the ACA, laws to expand Medicaid so people can get the care and services they need, and care for the elderly. I took that experience to work in direct services where I currently am. I'm a legal service attorney at New York Legal Assistance Group. I run free clinics at hospitals and health centers, including the hospital that serves North Brooklyn, Woodhull. There, I help people with issues including housing, immigration, benefits, health access, and I see how broken our system is and how broken city government is. I've fought for over 800 people to get them the care and benefits they need, and that's why I'm running for city council, because I know what is necessary, I have the policy experience, and I have that personal drive from my own life that makes it such an urgent thing to do, to fix our healthcare system and all the other social service systems that lead to sickness and death in our community. Throughout the pandemic, I started new clinics to help the elderly and to get people out of nursing homes, and I want to continue that fight in City Council.
Thank you. Now, Ben Solotaire.
Hi, Sky. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. I'm just one letter away from being the last in this group alphabetically. So, but thank you again for letting us be here. I was born in New York. I had the privilege and joy of growing up in the state of Maine, which is a beautiful place to go. But I knew when I was a young kid that I would be coming back here, and I did in 1986 after going to SUNY Purchase for 4 or 5 years, long time, longer than I should have. But I came back to Brooklyn in 1986 as a freelancer in the theater world. So I did that. I had 2 kids. We spent a little bit of time in Chicago, then came back and continued in the freelance world in entertainment while my kids grew up, and eventually went to college. And after that, you know, through that whole time, I was a good New Yorker. I read the New York Times and I voted. Good liberal New Yorker. But after they left college, I decided that I needed to do something different, something better. Took an opportunity to intern with then council member Gail Brewer on the West Side, obviously. And she really opened my eyes to what local government can do. She's one of our great public servants. It was a 3-month internship. I spent 7 months there. And from that moment on, I knew that city council could make people's lives better. It could work for people. It could improve their neighborhoods, and also just learn the passion that people have for their neighborhoods and their communities. They would come to the council looking for help to achieve great things, large and small. And so I eventually did that. I went to Brad Lander's office, worked for the Fortune Society for a while, but then ended up as community liaison and director of participatory budgeting for Council Member 11. And I just learned that day to day, we talk to the constituents, again, the problems large and small, and help them solve them, help them make, help government work better for them. Find the problems and try to solve them by working together with community members, whether it's the impact that huge developments have on your neighborhoods, their desire to have their dogs off leash or have dog parks, the problems with their kids in school or crumbling infrastructure at NYCHA. It's really all about talking with them, sitting down and listening to solve the problem. So I hope to do that as the next council member. I will continue to listen to our community and help them find the problems, the solutions to the problems we have.
Thank you. And I know I muted everyone because I heard some feedback, so I didn't mean to mute anyone, but that did it for the feedback. Thank you. Now, April Somboun.
Yes, thank you so much, Sky. And it's always great to see all the candidates. My name is April Somboun, and I'm running for City Council in Brooklyn's 33rd District. Happy to be here. My story starts far from the city. I was born in a refugee camp to a single mom from Laos. She fled communism and moved to the US for us so we could pursue the American dream. Through hard work and perseverance and a commitment to our family and our community, we did get a little bit of help and found our path, and I solidified my desire to impact change. I've worked in the nonprofit sector, educating kids about the importance of personal finance, economics, and I also help create jobs for those living in poverty in East Africa. And I work for one of our favorite brands, Scholastic, in their partnerships department. And I am personally deeply committed to advocating and fighting for affordable housing. I grew up in Section 8 housing. I've lived in poverty. I had food stamps and I worked my way out of the system. I know how important it is for every New Yorker to have access to safe, affordable homes and to be able to live with dignity. And I see a path to making that a reality by ensuring that you guys have a voice at the table and that we work together in partnerships with others. Also, education is very near and dear to me because I'm a mom to 2 young kids, ages 6 and 3, and I've been navigating the public school system, and it's been one hell of a year, but we're making it through, and I'm optimistic for the new year this fall that things will get better. And I will be the advocate, and I will stand next to the mayor and ensure that he serves our kids with the resources and tools they need to succeed. Also, I believe that small businesses need greater assistance, especially right now when they're hurting, and we can't forget about them. So, you know, I am a working mom, and when we elect moms, legislative priorities change that benefit all. I've had a few endorsements that I'm really proud of from State Senator John Liu, Moms in Office, and Vote Mama. So very selective. So that's why I'm running for City Council, and I hope you'll vote for me in June 22nd. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you to all the candidates. And I failed to recognize our live audience. We, believe it or not, have 64 people watching this right now, which is actually really impressive considering it's a Friday night at 8 o'clock. So that's how many people care. It's really great. So we hope everyone comes out to vote. Now, let's go around. We'll go in the same order and talk about your top issue and what makes you the person to solve it. What's your superpower when it comes to solving your top issue? Elizabeth.
Thanks. So my top issue is the pandemic recovery. It's funny when you said superpower, I was thinking like my first thought was lie detector of really kind of assessing how things move in politics. But so the number one thing that I want to do on day one is put together an economic recovery plan with $1 billion for our small businesses. I've worked in small businesses, and during my time as the legislative director in the council, I have really focused on guiding our small businesses through the pandemic. And working on the number one issue of rent. That is what I hear over and over again as the number one challenge from our small businesses. You know, we have over 500,000 New Yorkers still out of work. So the first thing that we need is real economic relief with a $1 billion package for our small businesses. Investing in our neighborhood business fuels our economy, it provides local jobs, and it sustains the well-being of our neighborhoods. You know, it allows us to preserve the culture and the diversity that make our communities what they are, that make our city the greatest in the world. And then second, we need to create new jobs with 21st century infrastructure. That includes addressing the BQE, which has divided our communities for generations. And we need to put together a green workforce that moves us forward to the environmental future that we need. And then lastly, we need a housing system that works as part of our environment, as part of our economic recovery, with real rent assistance as the eviction moratorium ends, you know, later this year. Thanks.
I know you touched on a bunch of issues. Let's try and keep it to one issue. And then what's specific about you in your heart, soul, mind would make you the person to fix it? Victoria. Oops, sorry, I muted you. So hold on a second. There we go.
That better? Thank you for this question. This is actually something really important, and something that I've been talking about for a really long time, for many years, is that why council in particular? The council has three responsibilities. It passes legislation, passes the budget, and makes land use decisions. Land use sounds like a really wonky term, but it actually is, it's what controls our built environment, right? What controls what gets built where, how big, what the features are, and what the community benefits are. So that land use issue for me is the place at which all other social justice and quality of life issues intersect. You're talking about housing, homelessness, education, policing, gentrification, all of these, senior care, right? All of these issues come back to land use. And as an activist who's been involved with all of the major land use fights over the years, it really has shown me that every single fight requires not just doing your homework, not just understanding, the economics behind what's being offered and what's on the table, but also a really, really deep knowledge of zoning and city planning. And so that's why I'm very proud to have the endorsements of professors like Tom and Gotti, who have been teaching and studying this subject for many, many years, but also all of the major land use activists across New York City, because they understand that land use is that single issue that controls everything else: environment, education, housing, anything that you can talk about. You really need to understand city planning and land use.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Sabrina Gates. Oops, sorry, you're muted. There we go.
Hello. Okay, so I'm going to take a slightly different approach. While I am extremely passionate about issues of affordable housing and helping the homeless and education and health and small business, I'm going to say that we have a crisis of communication in the city. And you can create all of the legislation that you want to create. You can have all of the conversations and dialogue about what needs to happen across the city, but until you connect people with the resources that are at their disposal, change is not going to happen. And we've seen this time and time again, that conversations are had in small rooms at funny times that are not accessible to the majority of people who are working moms and people who work at night or are super busy during the middle of the day. So we need to accommodate those people so that our democracy becomes a place that is accessible to people so that people don't feel disenfranchised. And so you asked what our superpower is. Mine is my ability to connect with people from all walks of life. I have been blessed in my lifetime to know so many people from so many different spaces and places. And just the kinds of conversations that I've had throughout the course of time, and also in the course of this election, right? Just meeting wonderful neighbors and friends. And I want to speak to those issues and I want to represent their voices. And I think I can do that because I am able to hear their stories and really listen. And one of the things that I want to do as city council member is really advocate for universal broadband. But I also want to encourage and implore all of our city agencies to take a hard look at how we're disseminating information to people. And finally, not to go on, because I can definitely go on for quite some time, I think we need to really look at how the city puts together their expressions of communication. And so there's a tendency to throw up a website every time you create something new or create a piece of legislation. Well, let's try something different. Maybe it's creating a better 411 portal system or creating something new where people answer a series of questions that leads them directly to the information that they need. Whatever it will be, and I would encourage us to go the latter route, it's something that we definitely need to improve.
Thank you. Thank you. Toba, your number one issue and your superpower to fix it. Oh, sorry, you're on mute. I don't know if that happens.
No. It's okay. You said this was supposed to be fun.
This is fun, isn't it? Your superpower. Like,
okay, so I think that, what Elizabeth was talking about initially, makes a lot of sense because we all have to focus on COVID recovery. And we're working on that, and we're moving forward. But you're talking very specific about superpowers. So I want to talk about the fact that I live and benefit from one of the greatest affordable housing programs in the history of the city and the state of New York. Right? It's called Mitchell-Lama. So New York City and New York State built over 100,000 affordable units in the 60s and the 70s, and then they stopped. Right? And when I got active in affordable housing, I attended every seminar, even going back, if anybody remembers when Virginia Fields was Manhattan Borough President, I went to every task force meeting that she had. I went to every housing conference that Scott Stringer had, Marty Markowitz, and I tried to get to Eric Adams, but they're early in the morning and I have to work then. There is a big problem, and this is one of the great areas. I mean, all of our campaigns branch out into a whole bunch of really, really vital issues, right? But you asked for one, and you asked for superpowers. Because I'm the beneficiary of one of the greatest programs, I know how it works, right? And as I said earlier in my open statement, I rewrote some of the rules. It is not uncommon for me to talk to members of the city agencies who will ask me about certain programs. I received a request from Mayor de Blasio's office asking for a letter of recommendation for his housing program. So clearly, I know what I'm talking about with affordable housing. I put out last week my affordable housing plan where we can build, not pretend build, but really build 100,000 affordable units over the next 10 years. And we're not talking about just middle income, but middle income, moderate income, and low income. And there is a focus, and there has been a focus on renting. I'm not part of that conversation. I want to get low-income families who are renters off the rent rolls and get them into home ownership in their existing homes. And there are great programs, and this is the good news. There are great programs that already exist that just need the leadership in the city council to go to the mayor and go to the other legislators and say, we need to fund these programs. We need to support these organizations. People are surprised to find out that Habitat for Humanity has a huge stake in New York City, and they're taking low-income families at the 30% of AMI to 60% of AMI and making them homeowners. These are superhero things. If you become a homeowner and then you have equity in your community and you start building on that, that is superhero power. I just want to touch on this really quick because as president of Cadman Towers for 16 years, I know I got to run, 16 years, I've replaced roofs, over a dozen roofs. I replaced thousands of windows. I replaced boilers and remediated mold and bed bugs. I have more experience to help residents of NYCHD than anybody who's running for city council, not just in this district. I have hands-on experience being responsible for over $40 million of capital repair projects. That is my superpower. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Lincoln.
Tough act to follow. When it comes to, for me, the top issue is climate change. When it comes to the climate crisis, moderation equals death. It is the existential challenge of our lifetime. We live in a waterfront district. We represent the front lines when the next big storm hits. We must act now. Often the climate crisis can feel so big and scary and overwhelming that it feels like there's nothing we can do. And that's why I put forward a highly localized plan to transform the 33rd Council District into the first carbon neutral district in New York. Here's how. To end our dependence on fossil fuels and reach carbon neutrality, we need a holistic and a neighborhood approach. Our 53 bold new initiatives build on climate policies already in place and target the largest sources of emissions in the city and in our district: our buildings, our transportation, our electricity, and our waste. By empowering and incentivizing residents to act urgently to reduce emissions in each of these sectors, we can end our dependence on fossil fuels. Just highlight the top points in the plan, 10 key points. 1, we need to electrify and retrofit our housing stock. 2, we need to install solar on every viable rooftop. 3, we need to legalize in-home battery storage to take advantage of that solar power. 4, we need to facilitate mass utilization of electric heat pumps by providing low-cost financing. 5, we need to reimagine our transportation network, reducing dependence on individual car ownership, realizing a network of protected bike lanes, and more electric vehicle charging. 6, we need to mandate composting and recycling. 7, we need to encourage residents to take advantage of voluntary renewable programs wherever they can afford it. 8, we should make the Navy Yard one of the national models in industrial and manufacturing jobs, a national hub for alternative energy. 9, we have the second largest number of city buildings of any council district in the city. We should drive down our city buildings to zero emission facilities. And 10, we have to prioritize a Green New Deal for NYCHD and improve our efficiency in our NYCHD developments. My superpower is that I know this district backward and forward, blindfolded. And I know how to mobilize folks in our community to actually get bills passed at City Hall and to encourage us to change behavior that can make a major difference in the fight against climate change. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Stu Sherman, your #1 issue and your superpower to fix it.
Thanks. So my #1 issue is healthcare. And the funny thing is my kryptonite is also my superpower, which is the superhuman inability to metabolize sugar. Struggling with diabetes, I know how broken the system is. My insulin I take to live, which I need, has increased 1,200% over the past 20 years. It now costs almost $20,000 to be a type 1 diabetic in this country. When I was a kid, it was a couple hundred. I know what the fear is of a broken healthcare system. And I also know how every city government failure and broken social safety net leads to our emergency rooms. And I think everyone here now realizes that as well after getting through the pandemic. How many people got sick and how many people died because of a broken healthcare system and other broken social safety nets. So what can the city government do about healthcare? It turns out a lot. The city government, for one, can open city-run pharmacies utilizing various programs like the 340B program, in which people are never worried about getting medication they need to live or going bankrupt because they get medicine. I see this all the time in my clinics. People end up needing heart medication, their Medicaid lapses, they end up in the emergency room. They need antipsychotic medication, a program lapses, they don't have insurance, they end up in the emergency room, or they end up in prison because of a psychotic episode. Another thing that is a major important to me in healthcare is home care. And this is one thing that if we had more of this, less people would have been in disastrous nursing homes during the pandemic. If the city puts more energy and resources towards getting people care at home, we won't have people in nursing homes. And therefore, we won't have such a dangerous situation, which were a tinderbox for the pandemic. I do this all the time, my job. I know how the city government can be utilizing existing programs. Health and Hospitals has a $8 billion budget. There are programs and ways they can use that in a much better and expansive way. We can also use New York Cares to provide universal health care in New York City. And we can do whatever we can, and I will do whatever I can to support the New York Health Act's passage in the New York state government and working with our legislatures to make sure that that passes. But in the interim, I want to make New York a capital for healthcare and well-being in the country.
Thank you. Next is Ben Solotaire, your #1 issue and your superpower to fix it.
First of all, these are some great answers. I just really like Sabrina's comments about communication. I think that's a crucial thing. I'll jump right in with the superpower, and I'll give you an honest to God superpower. I think I would say it's talking to animals, and I will explain that. Now you could all remind me I said that next time.
I have to get my animal for you to talk to. Bouchon.
I know. I don't know where the cat is. Listen, I love New York City. I've lived here. I can't imagine living anywhere else. But I grew up in an 800-person fishing village on the coast of Maine, and I spent every moment outside. If I wasn't in the theater, I was outside, in the water, in the forest. We had horses. I understand the importance of nature and how crucial it is to our environment and to our lives in a deep way. And even though I live in the city, we need to continue to expose ourselves to that and our children when they're growing up. And to echo what Lincoln was saying, you know, obviously climate change and the effects that it's going to have on our city are going to be devastating. And it's a global issue. It's a Brooklyn issue. But we need to embrace nature to fight that. We need to bring in renewable energy. We need to have sustainable and resilient waterfronts. We need to have more parks that have trees for fresh air. We need to expose our kids to how food is grown. Hydroponic gardens, rooftop gardens, green roofs on as many buildings as we can have, along with solar. The cities are environmentally beneficial overall. They are compact. We don't need to drive as much. You know, you go up in the country and you drive like 20 minutes between houses, and we have to. It's a sort of a, you know, there's so much sewage systems and electrification up there. It's all very somewhat inefficient. But so cities are fantastic, and we have to understand that we are part of nature even here. You know, I've had a raccoon in the backyard and possums in the backyard. They are part of nature. So I think that fighting climate change by embracing nature, embracing the fact that we are a coastal borough and a coastal district, as you said at the beginning, Sky, we need to utilize our coast in a sound way. So again, we just need to take advantage of the city, the things that it provides, but grow some flowers every now and then.
Thank you. Now, last April, tell us.
Yes. You know, I care a lot about affordable housing, as I told in the beginning, but I'm going to talk about small businesses. Small businesses are our lifeblood of our communities. The next city council person will have to work with other city council members across the city, and we must prioritize economic recovery and relief. We need to stop our most vibrant businesses, both small and large, from fleeing and failing in New York City. The carnage that's happening in California is a warning to us, and we need to stop scaring businesses away because of the rhetoric that we want to keep taxing and over-regulating. Instead of raising taxes and fees, we can make shifts in the way that we spend our tax dollars. One way is to encourage new businesses, and growth is to eliminate nuanced fees and the onerous processing and wait time for starting a new business. And we can also help mitigate vacancies that don't punish people, but incentivizes them to do better, such as providing landlords with tax credits for improving and maintaining their properties inside and out. No business wants to fail. And today I saw a sign that said, you know, small business owners are dreamers, and we must also support their dreams. And I believe during these times, we can have a responsible free market economy that will inject capital back into our communities. And we must work together, private and public. And I will work with businesses and community members to facilitate those meaningful changes. And I would say my superpower, I think it's a superpower, is my empathy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Now, Toba criticized this for not being enough fun. And I'm going to take that into consideration, combined with the fact that if you look at the questions that were submitted, these are questions that voters have. Voters want to know who's the most liberal here. Who are each of you ranking number two? Two people asked that question. And people want to hear you guys say something nice about one another. So they're not even asking about the issues. So for the next, the next 23 minutes, let's talk about your relationships with one another. And, oh, look, what's your favorite restaurant in the district? These are the questions that are coming in. It's really fun. I think going into these debates, we intend to talk about policy stuff, but it goes back to my hypothesis, which is personality matters most, my hypothesis. So maybe raise your hand if you think you're the most liberal.
Oh, Mr. Liberal?
Yeah, liberal. Okay. So, there's 4 people here that think that they're the most liberal. So fight it out. What makes you the most? Who's the most liberal? That's what the voters want to know.
Can I jump in here first? So I think the term liberal has kind of lost a little bit of meaning in District 33 because I think we're all pretty progressive. But I do believe that, you know, systemic change is required in the face of really devastating issues in our district. I'm actually a 3rd-generation socialist in addition to being a Democrat. My grandfather was an indigenous socialist politician during the golden age of socialism in Guatemala before the coup. And he taught me the value of fighting for national health care, fighting for universal education, fighting for workers' rights and the ability for workers to unionize. These are things that I grew up hearing about my grandfather and the work that he had done and giving his life for that cause. And so those are the principles that I take from socialism, from what we would call the more, I guess, more international left. And so that's what I take with me when it comes to being a liberal here locally, because I think those things matter as well. They can be translated on a local level, and it doesn't have to be something very scary or radical. I think it's actually beautiful and necessary.
Okay, next liberal up. Who wants to? Elizabeth.
Hey, thanks. So I come at this work as an organizer, an advocate, and really through the lens of care, no matter what. That's why I went to go work at Planned Parenthood. It's the approach that I brought with me into the council, pushing for care in our housing system, in our environment, in our schools. And to me, that is connected to the theory of change. That is what drives me as a progressive, as someone who believes that the way that we address the structural system, large-scale issues are from the ground up. Or when we organize with our neighbors, with each other, when we think about a sense of community up approach, that we are bringing more people to the table so that all of our voices are heard, that we are not making top-down decisions disconnected from people's lives, from one person in power to dictating what's happening for the rest of our communities. That is, to me, what is truly progressive, is when we change our government system to be more accountable to our communities, to be rooted in care and justice and love for all of us. And that, I think, is truly transformative from just, right, left, middle, but thinking about how we have to operationalize an entirely different system. Thanks.
Okay. Lincoln, did you want to chime in?
Happy to. Thank you, Sky. And thank you for the question. I think when you look at the issues that matter, I am proud to be, the progressive candidate in this race. Firstly, when it comes to new development, I've put out bold policies for how we shift power away from big real estate and empower our tenants. We launched this campaign around the idea, and a big idea called lower NYC rent, where we look to take the vacant housing that's been vacant in large new buildings for months and months, and actually intervene to shift those rents down to make them more affordable to working families. When it comes to who's going to go toe-to-toe against the big developers in our community who are looking for rezonings, I believe that I will demand more effectively than any other candidate in this race.
That's not true. You never have, Lincoln. That's not true. You know that.
Yeah, a fight broke out.
Wow.
I have to call you out on that because that is complete and utter BS. My meter is going off. I'm sorry. You can't say that. You can't call yourself the most progressive. Let's be honest here.
I think when it comes, so thank you for that, Victoria. When it comes to bringing real accountability to the NYPD, I'm proud of the policies that we've put forward to push cops out of schools, out of social services, homeless services, and to build new approaches to public safety where we hire social workers and mental health professionals that can respond in real time to address issues that cops aren't trained or equipped to handle. And when it comes to the proposals that I outlined on climate change, I think that they separate us from the field. But I think most clearly, when you look at where the progressive standard bearers, where DSA state senators Julia Salazar and Jabari Brisport, where Zephyr Teachout, where Cynthia Nixon, where Vocal New York and Make the Road New York all come and form consensus in this race, it's in support of my candidacy. And
Lincoln.
that's because I'm the progressive leader in the race.
Lincoln, who are you putting as number 2?
Oh.
You can see there are a number of really strong candidates, and I haven't yet decided.
Okay, Stu, you wanted to chime in on the liberal conversation.
Oh yeah, I wanted to make the case as the most progressive or among the most progressive because there are some very good progressive candidates in this race. I believe that the government has the ability to help people and make positive change in people's lives, and that big structural change is not only possible but necessary right now. I've fought for over 2 decades for single-payer healthcare, now known as Medicare for All. I believe that we really need to stop relying on for-profit and profit motives to fix our problems, and that government needs to do it. And I think on housing, one area that's really important to me, what we need to do is stop relying on developers' profit motives to solve our housing crisis, because we have the worst housing crisis in the city's history. There's more homeless people than there has ever been before. There is more housing instability, and there's 14,500 people that might be evicted when the eviction moratorium ends. And the city council and Lincoln's boss for the past 10 years have relied on for-profit developers to solve these problems, as opposed to mission-driven nonprofits and other things that we know work to help give people the housing they need. Every day in the hospital I work at, I see people that need housing, that have vouchers, that can't use them, that have a shortage of housing. And there's really a need for more affordable housing on a big level, and government needs to step in and fix that.
So that was the 4 candidates who raised their hand when they said that they were the most liberal. So for the person that asked the liberal question, that was their answer. Now I want to bring in the other 4 candidates into the conversation. If you don't see yourself as the most liberal here, what do you want to talk about as far as the conversation and in your strength? And who would you rank as number 2? Toba, you want to kick us off?
No. Since you mentioned my name, I just want to
have fun, Toba. So make it fun.
Okay, so here, look, before I say anything, I noticed that my dear friend Agnes and my good friend Rick are watching. And so I just want to tell this really quick. So it was my birthday the other day. Agnes goes and gets a reservation at Gage and Tollner, right? Supporting small businesses in the neighborhood. I couldn't make my own birthday dinner. So they went without me because they're my good friends. I insisted, and they had the most amazing time. So if you have an extra $500 and you want to go and enjoy, support a local business, go to Gage and Tollner. They just opened, and I hear it's the most amazing. So, and thank my dear friends for actually being being online. I just want to address the whole thing about labels.
Sure.
I was born in Flushing, Queens. It's a very, very, lower middle class family. My parents, in the 60s owned their apartment, which they then sold and bought a bigger house before they ultimately got divorced. But, I go to fundraisers all the time for very liberal Democrats. And I was at one not that long ago. And people in there were arguing over what's more important, being liberal or progressive? What's the title? What's the best title? I don't care. I honestly don't care. There are certain things that I think that, it's interesting. I think that once we get universal health care, I think Republicans will get that it's good for business. You know what I mean? So small businesses don't have to add that on. So when it comes to like labels and things like that, I worry about it. I'm more focused on things like aging in place. And as Stu says, there's so many people who are focused on home insecurity. I do, in my housing plan, I do come up with a rent assistance program that's better than what's being provided to the city. And so I hope people get a chance to look at that, who are seriously considering, have an open mind about who they want in this district. If without that, if we're uncertain about where we're going to live, right? And I know Eric Adams talked about it last night in the debate, saying he would go to school with a bag of clothing because they weren't sure they're gonna live. These are things that we really need to focus on. I think labels aren't so important. Maybe they're important to some people. They're certainly not important to me. But aging in place, building affordable housing. I just want to be really clear about something. New York City owns all this land that can be developed for what I call provisional housing. So instead, we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on shelters, and we should stop doing that and build provisional housing with on-site supportive services. And I think everybody will agree with me on that, because our shelter system hasn't worked. But also, aging in place is a big thing as we're aging, and we don't really have facilities for seniors to go to. There's one down the block from me. It's $13,000 a month. I don't know anybody who can afford that. I know you were sort of asking about labels and who's my second and all that stuff. I just want to say real quick.
The voters are asking.
Our voters are asking. So when we first got started and we would go to meetings like this, I had sort of reached out to April and I reached out to Victoria, and they've been very, very kind and very, very generous to me. I bored Sabrina yesterday for a half hour on the phone. I talked to Stu the other day, and I talked to Ben. I haven't yet. Lincoln was very nice to send me a birthday text, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Elizabeth yet. So I don't have an answer for you, but there are great people, and I have been very supportive of Victoria and for April. So, but I haven't picked the number 2 or number 3 yet.
Okay, there you go. I'd like to bring April, Sabrina, and Ben now into the conversation. It doesn't have to be about this topic. I'm just reading what the voters wrote in.
Can
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I guess I'll say a couple of things about being progressive. I think it's sort of convenient in the election cycle that we're in that everyone wants to categorize themselves as progressive. But what does that ultimately mean? At the end of the day, we need to move the needle for New Yorkers. And I think time and time again, what we've seen is a Band-Aid approach. We have to begin with the end in mind. And I appreciate a lot about what Elizabeth had to say about bringing in the community's voices into the conversation when you're looking at planning. But we also have to have a plan, which is also something Victoria attests to quite regularly. If we don't know where we want to end up, we're not going to get there. And again, every 4 years, we're having these same conversations. We know the answers to many of these things. With homelessness, as Toba pointed out, housing first. We know that supportive housing makes the difference for people. Put people in housing instead of spending $117 a night. That equates to what, $3,200 per month? That's not sensible. We have to make smart decisions and smart moves for the people of this city. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. We represent the people. And so for me, running for office has to do with putting service back in public service. I have been engaged with so many different organizations over the years. And at the end of the day, like the goal should be to not exist anymore, right? At the end of the day, we should look to solve the problems, not to continue to perpetuate them to a point where we're just continuing to fuel systems that don't work. It's just not, we should demand more and we should expect more as a city that's as big as we are and that has the construct and the construction and the infrastructure that we have. We can do so much more. And at this point, it's just ridiculous. We need new voices, we need new energy, we need new conversations.
April.
Yeah, I'm an outsider and I've never been in politics, but I've had a lot of lived experiences. And my ideology is that I'm someone who looks at policy with an and perspective and not an or. We have to be flexible. We have to work together and come up with solutions that will work even if we do A, B, C, and D. And something is that as someone who wants to serve and be a public servant, I'm about finding common ground, especially with the city in dire straits, and we need to rev up our economy. And that's what I think that we need to do. We need to get back to our community and we need to listen to the people. So I'm gonna listen to the people and I'm gonna give you my number 2 choice tonight. It was a toss up, but I really value Victoria's stance. She says she's a very liberal. I would say I'm a more pragmatic, middle of the road person, but I like how Victoria stands up and really speaks truth to power sometimes.
Great, look at that. Thank you. Now, Ben.
So yeah, I agree a lot with what Toba said as far as labels. I registered as a Democrat as soon as I could register to vote. I've been a Democrat my whole life. There was 2 things that happened recently. I was out canvassing, talking to the voters, and one guy walked up and he said, "Are you a socialist?" And I said, "No, I'm a liberal." And he said, "Okay, I can work with that." And I was like, "All right, good." I got that one. And then another guy the other day, he said, "Are you a Democrat?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Good. Would you defund the police?" And I said, "We need to seriously look at their budget and definitely cut it back." And he swore at me. He was like, "F you." He's like, you're gonna destroy the city. Like next time I'm just saying, like, people with different perspectives have different views on, Democrats have different views, progressives have different views. Mm-hmm. Some of the progressive policies, we have the most inhumane criminal justice system in the world. I think what Jumaane Williams once said is, the problem isn't that it's broken, it's that it works the way it's supposed to, and which is punishment and retribution. We need to overhaul that system completely. We need to not only put money into NYCHA and fix our capital projects, but we need to rebuild it from the ground up as an institution. It is a racist, corrupt institution, and we need to, you just give them money, it's going to get wasted. So we need to work on it both sides. So I think that there's a lot of progressive policies that I have, though I also think we need to have clean streets. You know, we need to make sure that people can cross the street safely, and whether they're on bikes or pedestrians, you know, or driving. We need to make sure that the city is safe for everybody, and our schools need to be equitable across the board. I think I got in trouble for saying this, but there shouldn't be a bad school and a good school. We should have all good schools. So
Absolutely right.
Education is the key. And so, yeah, you know, am I the most left? Who knows? But I would fight for progressive policies, and I would fight for the people who live in this district. And as far as the number 2, yeah, since I said it the other day, I actually mentioned it to her the other day, I would have to say that a lot of great candidates here, but April would be the number 2 that I would vote for, because I think that having a mom in office is a good idea. And I'm a dad. I have 2 great kids, but there's a lot of dads in office, and I think a mom there would be good.
See, this is nice. Does anyone else? Yeah, see, this is really sweet. Does anyone else want to?
I also think she sounds, I mean, overall, she's good. I don't want to say I voted for her because she's a mom, but she's a lot of good things.
Yeah, because someone else also asked for anyone to make a compliment. Yes, Elizabeth.
Well, yeah, I mean, so in terms of a compliment, I think one thing I really want to appreciate is what Sabrina has talked about in terms of the crisis of information. I think that is so important in terms of what our city is facing. It's not just passing a fancy sounding legislation or bill, but really making sure that people are connected to the services that are already available, to programs that are out there when it comes to tenants' rights, when it comes to legal services for small businesses, immigration support. And so really connecting the dots for people in terms of what's available is really essential. So I really appreciate the focus on making government, the operations of government work better and really serve our communities and serve people. And yeah, and then in terms of the number 2s and number 3s, I really encourage people, we can make history this election by electing the first woman ever to this council district. And there's no reason when we have multiple qualified women running to continue the status quo. And so I encourage folks to rank women up and down the ballot. I think we have a real opportunity this year, and there are a number of really great candidates running.
Look at that.
I will second that.
Wow, really nice. Anyone else want to say something nice in the spirit of being nice? Yes, Toba.
So I held a fundraising event, and a community event. I invited April, and April came, and that was fantastic. And I introduced everybody as, here's April, we're running against each other. But, I actually have another project coming up soon, and I kind of feel like inviting Victoria and April. But then my wife always says, why are you inviting your competition? I go, because I just like them.
See everyone.
I was kind of hoping that Ben would pick me. I was about to pick him. Now I can't.
Come on.
I do love Maine. My wife
picked Victoria. And I picked her.
Well, Ben, you and I are talking on Monday, so maybe you will be my number 2.
Does anyone else want to say something nice before we go into my final question?
I would love to. I just think that every candidate in this race has earnestly come to the table with good ideas for how we make our community better. And I feel like all 8 of us have come forward with the best intentions. And this is a competition of ideas. And I've really been impressed. A number of people in this race have been active in our neighborhoods and contributed to making our communities better for many, many years. I mean, the work that Toba's done in Cadman Park and Cadman Towers, Ben's leadership at CBID and at many local nonprofits. Sabrina was there when we started New King. So folks who have really been invested in our community for a long time, and just appreciate everybody's good work and best efforts to try to make our neighborhood even better.
Isn't that nice?
It's really, really nice. Thank you everyone for being nice. Now there's 2 minutes left, 2 minutes. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go around and you're going to say your final phrase that you want to leave voters with that represents you. And we'll go in our same order. Elizabeth. Oops, you're muted.
You're on mute, Elizabeth.
Yeah, thanks. So I've been laser focused on the needs of our communities, especially when the pandemic hit. Working both inside the council to get people connected to social services and then outside of government to make sure our neighbors have the care and support they needed through mutual aid. And so coming at this from a care no matter what perspective in showing up for our communities is why I'm here. Thanks.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you, and thank you for tonight. My one phrase is, I hope that you vote for the working class community candidate who represents those voices in the community who have been disenfranchised, because we can speak for ourselves, and we have the opportunity to do that now in this election.
Thank you. Sabrina.
So it's time to change the conversation, not just in our district, but in the city. We really have to look at doing things different. And I think sometimes we get caught up in a short-term perspective and not really look at the long view. And now is the time to do that, because 10 years from now, I think this city could be magical, not for the one, but for the many. So please get out and vote on June 22nd.
Thank you. Toba, your final phrase.
So I just want to say, I spent a lifetime in New York, and politicians say great things and candidates, but we have to look at where we are now as we do have more homeless on the streets than ever before. We do have solutions now that we hadn't had in the past. And so we need a leader who has experience of working outside of government, who brings new ideas, who has experience like myself, and I've worked with dozens of city agencies in getting things done and closing the gaps where government is deficient and the community has to step up. And so for everybody who's listening out there right now, and I appreciate you spending your Friday night with us, understand that when you understand me. I have 16 years of looking at deficiencies that I know that government has done and been successful at closing these gaps. Thank you. And thanks, Schneps, and thanks, Scott.
Lincoln, your phrase.
Thank you, Sky. Government is about solving problems, and we need our next council member to be somebody who's got big ideas and bold plans for Brooklyn, someone who's going to fight with love for every corner of our community. And I appreciate you keeping me in mind.
Thank you. Stu.
So the past year has really laid bare the inequities in our healthcare system and everything the city council must do to fix it. I've mentioned I've worked on the front lines of inequity as a legal service attorney, and I think that's the phrase. We need people who fight on the front lines to fight inequity in city council.
Sure.
Good. Thank you, Ben, the nature guy.
I think in the years that I've been working in the district, listening to people, I think they know that I am dedicated to working together with them and staying with them. So I think working together to solve our problems.
Beautiful. And April.
Yes. Thank you for this awesome night. It was really fun. I'm an outsider and with a new vision who's lived through it all, from poverty to where I am today. And the next new city council person has to be empathetic but forward thinking. And my one phrase, sorry, I know, I'm a mom, and when moms get elected into office, things change, especially legislative priorities that benefit all. I mean, everyone. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you guys for such a nice debate. I hope it was a little more fun and interesting than the usual. So thank you. I really appreciate it. On behalf of Schneps Media and PoliticsNY, we are the only media outlet providing a platform for every single candidate to have their voice heard. So submit us your op-eds, tag us in your social media posts. We'll amplify anything you want to put out there. And we really appreciate it. We really appreciate our live audience. More than 60 people were paying attention this entire time. And the recording of this will go on our website, politicsny.com/debates. So you can circulate that link all over social media and send it around your email list, blah, blah. I'm Sky with PoliticsNY. Thank you so much and good luck.
Thank you, Sky.
Bye.
Bye.